Happy Wednesday, Sean. To start with, I'm not feeling well today, something with my stomach and gases and roiling turmoil. I'll edit out all the bathroom breaks. Take a quick moment, Sean, to address your last video. Point one. But yeah, about the kids thing. I'm glad you and E plan to procreate. Adrian and I, at this point in our lives, I think plan to only have furry four-legged children. Something about teaching has left me with the urge never to parent a teenage human. Not that cats are always easy either. Jasper gives me attitude all the time. Meow, 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 meow. See? Attitude. So when you talk about how much we focus on the future, and I totally agree that as with most things in life, balance is the key. That though the past and the future have these strong riptides that pull us toward obsessing about them, it's so important sometimes to just, float in the here and now and enjoy. I was at the beach last weekend, if you couldn't tell. This weekend I was reading an article about a school in Delaware that was pulling a book off a reading list, a suggested reading list for incoming freshmen. What the f***? The book is called The Miseducation of Cameron Post. A link to the article and to buying the book will be down there. What is he pointing at? So with school just getting back in session, Banned Books Week just around the corner, and this article, I wanted to talk about why limiting what kids can read is just not a good idea, especially when it's coming from centers of public education. Just a note, I have not read the Cameron Post book, so I can't talk about that specifically. What I can talk about are the main reasons why books are banned. We live in a country that believes in freedom of speech, so books are not banned on really a federal level anymore. When a book is removed from a school or from a library shelf, this is the work of parents and school administrators and school boards and local government councils. This might be even more insidious because fewer people know about it and it might give a false sense of being democratic in some way. So according to Joan Burton, the executive director of the National Council Against Censorship, says that she sees an attempt to ban a book at least once a week. Once a week? So what are the reasons why people want to ban these books? Generally, these books are being deemed inappropriate for a certain audience, usually school-aged children. When they're talking about something being inappropriate, they're talking about its language, presentation of sex and sexuality, contrasting religious or political views, and occasionally violence. And oftentimes the motivation for doing this is to purportedly protect children. Some of the books last year that were most challenged include Looking for Alaska by John Green, The Hunger Games by Susan Collins, and The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky, however you say his last name. And of course my favorite, Captain Underpants. Even some books that are now considered standard for the English classroom have been challenged. The Great Gatsby, As I Lay Dying, To Kill a Mockingbird have all been at one point challenged. Ironically, some of the most challenged books include Fahrenheit 451, 1984, and Brave New World, all of which are warning us about the dangers of overreaching governments and societies. Okay, a couple things. First of all, just because a book includes something like foul language, sex, or drug use doesn't mean that it's promoting it. In fact, the author may very well be warning about the dangers of such things. So many people who complain about these books haven't even read them. They hear that there's something offensive in the book, they go to that page, they read it out of context and decide, this is horrible! Context is king, people! And most times, the parents and the administrators who want these books banned aren't dealing with reality. So let's address the language issue. Spend just 5 minutes in the hall of a high school, any high school, and you will probably hear language far worse than anything that any of these authors could dream up. I used to think that ratchet just meant this. And the idea that just because a book mentions sex, it's going to put the idea in a kid's head is ridiculous. That idea was there already. Look at it this way. Though our society increasingly talks more openly about sex, teenage pregnancy rates have dropped dramatically. It's as if being educated about sex makes people smarter about sex. Here's the thing. We have to learn to trust our teachers. Teachers are professionals. They have gone to school to study their discipline, they have studied child psychology, they have studied education and educational strategies. They know what they're doing. We don't just throw kids in a dark room to read about dark things and say, good luck. We're going to have a conversation with those kids about what they're reading. We want them to learn to see the questions that the books are asking and to ask them themselves. For instance, what does Hamlet tell us about dealing with the loss of a loved one? Lord of the Flies tell us about the leadership we look to and how can it help us pick better leaders. We look for books that will help our students learn. Learn not just to be better readers, but hopefully learn to be better people. There's a real danger in trying to shield our children from the realities of the world. And that danger is when they inevitably meet those realities that they won't be prepared to deal with them. In the end, that kind of overprotection is doing much more harm than it is good.